Hello and welcome to the Caged In podcast. I'm your host, Petrus Patsilivas, and this is a weekly journey through Nicolas Cage's career. However, this week is a special bonus episode where I'll be talking to a creative who has been inspired by Nick Cage. This is an ongoing series of my Caged In conversations, and this week will be with Paul Chin. It's a fantastic conversation. It's nice and a short one. Next week, there'll be another conversation, and then we'll be back to the regular scheduled programming. So without further ado, enjoy this conversation I had with Paul Chin Jr. Serverless networks, WebSockets, experimental APIs, Nicolas Cage. Seems like we have a clear outlier in this list of items, that being Nicolas Cage, something that I have a lot of knowledge about. The others, I don't have a clue what they're about. That's why I'm talking to Paul Chin Jr., a man who works in developer relations, JavaScript and serverless developing. You may be asking yourself, how does this relate to Nicolas Cage? Well, Paul is a self-confessed prophet of Cage, and I have him to explain to us how Cage has informed his work and what he does. How are you today, Paul?
I'm doing really well. I'm really excited to be on a Nicolas Cage podcast. Been working with the material of Cage for quite a few years now. And I suppose it had to lead me here to this moment right now, and it feels great.
Well, before we get to the point of how Cage comes into your work, what is it you do? Like I've watched your presentation that's like pinned at the top of your Twitter bio many times, and I'm still confused how that all works. So
So for a little bit of background, if you check out my Twitter, I've got a 5-minute technical talk. It's a very loose technical talk that I gave at a conference in New York this past fall. And it's just 5 minutes. And what I do is present technical information to other engineers, software engineers, web developers, folks who build stuff on the internet. And I always try to tint it with a little bit of Nicolas Cage. People right now, they're trying to learn all the new technologies that come out, and it's just endless amount of stuff. So I figure, why not just have some fun with it and bring in like never-ending Nicolas Cage memes and references to his work, his life, his movies, all of it.
But what is it? Yeah, what like? I'm a layman. I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Like what?
No, you're not an idiot. But
yeah, but what are the
okay?
things to talk about in this?
So the thing in that video is a way for people to build websites that can send information instantly between the website browser like Chrome or Firefox and to some computer owned by somebody else like Amazon or Google. Basically, all of these stuff you do on the internet, the computers that run these websites are in this place we call the cloud. And the cloud just means like Dropbox, like you put your data in Dropbox. And what I do is make websites. And so we use things like APIs, which is just a fancy word for recipe book. Like it's just an API is just a really fancy document to say like, hi, I'm Paul. I would like this thing from your website. And that's all it is. And in the video, I talk about WebSockets and serverless WebSockets. And it's just the newest way of doing that, is asking a website for some information. And in the demo, I set up a real-time experiment where people would go to a website and pick up their phone, and the phone would send data, accelerometer data. As people tilted their phones, it would tilt the head of Nicolas Cage up on the big screen, and everything was going through the internet. So all people had to do was just go to a website, turn their phones, and then they would see a head of Nicolas Cage turn in relation with their phone. And I thought it was really a fun demo because it showed what we call concurrent users, like a bunch of people doing the same thing at the same time, and each person controls their own head and tilt. So you could imagine a real life use case being like a video game, like you can use your phone as a controller for a video game. And I was demonstrating the newest ways of doing that.
Well, watching your presentation, like when it got to the moment of the kind of reveal at the end, I almost felt like I was watching an episode of like Silicon Valley. I was like, "What the hell is going on? This is next level crazy stuff." Like,
Yeah.
so to kind of like backtrack a little
Yeah.
bit as to how did the love of Cage start with you? Were you always a fan? Like,
So I'm 35, so I've seen a lot of Cage. I grew up, loving The Rock and Con Air, those like classic '90s actions. And then as I got older, I felt like the Cage movies kind of grew with me, as he got into adaptation and further along. And now um, I'm seeing Cage movies all over the place. And so this is how it originally all started. I was always a fan, and being on the internet all the time, the Nicolas Cage memes come up,
yeah.
and they're always good fun. I think officially Cage like disavows like any use of memes. Like he doesn't really like the whole meme thing, but he goes along with it. And I started using these memes to teach myself how to code. So 5 years ago, I didn't know how to do any of this stuff.
Wow.
And I was running restaurants. I had a photo studio. I had a bunch of different like businesses and failed
Yeah.
startups, right? And I found myself. I was like, man, I gotta figure out how to use the internet, like make software. And so I started learning. And it's hard, right? Like it's not the simplest thing to take on. And what I did was I needed like a muse. I needed something to focus on to build so that I could overcome all of these different technical things I had to learn. Like I had to learn like where does a website go? Like how do I tell a movie database to go get me all of the films? How do I interact with Twitter using a software program that I write? And so I just kept using Nicolas Cage memes and using his quotes and just stuff to fuel it because he's got so much material, right?
Yeah.
Like if you try to think like, oh, okay, why don't you do it? Think of a different like celebrity or actor or icon or something to like really push yourself to learn. And I couldn't come up with a better one than Nicolas Cage. Like I looked and I was like, this is it. Like I could make apps based on Nicolas Cage forever. My very first technical conference presentation was where I built an Internet of Things robot that would it would only work if you showed it a picture of Nicolas Cage. It had AI that could do a facial recognition, and if you showed it a picture of Nicolas Cage, the app would continue. Like that was the authentication.
That is amazing. Well, I've recently talked to another guy, Mike Lacker, who was telling me about he created like a VR experience, which is called the Cage. I'm not sure.
That's awesome.
If you've ever, if you've ever been on that, so like
I haven't, and that's the best part. Like I'm not the first or only person to do this. I know that there's other people that just sort of use it for entertainment or to reflect upon Cage's work critically. I mean, there's a lot of really great writers that have taken upon like cataloging and documenting and critiquing, his style. And right now I'm trying to bring some of that like nouveau shamanic feel to my presentations, right? I want to be able to like call in this like external energy that Cage brings into his films, and I want to bring them into my presentations. And what ends up happening is that like I get to teach people about something with very ridiculous premise, right? And I feel like if people didn't really even understand what was going on, they were still entertained and they were still intrigued. And like at the end of the day, my role is to have people become intrigued by the technologies that I'm using and that can help other businesses and stuff like that. So it's been an incredible like use and discovery process.
So this is a question I'm asking everyone. What was the first Nicolas Cage film you remember seeing? Was it The Rock or was it something different?
Ooh, the very first one was probably The Rock. So growing up, my parents, they owned a restaurant, and we never really got a whole lot of vacations, right? Like the restaurant's just open all the time. But during Christmas break, we would always go up to my grandma's. It was like a 2-hour drive. We'd go up to my grandma's. We'd close the restaurant down for a week, and we'd go to like Blockbuster Movies. This is for our younger listeners. Blockbuster Movies is a store that you would go to in order to rent movies. Like you would go and you would get the tape, and you would bring the tape home. And I remember bringing back like The Rock and like watching it. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I don't know, like I was tiny. And, you know, you just remember that big action flick with, you know, all the high stakes and yeah, the absurdity of taking over a prison. It's like so great.
So for you, you'd say it was like an instant connection with Cage. You were like on that moment, you were like, was it him or just the crazy premise of that film that kind of?
I think
like,
just the crazy, well, just the premise of the film. I wouldn't say that I like, you know, knew that 20 years from then I would be making content based on his work, but it was pretty clear, you know, by what was that? By the time he started putting out like National Treasures and what was some of the latest stuff he's done? I mean, even the most ridiculous things caused me to now go back and like rewatch like Vampire's Kiss or whatever. I would say that in needing source material to build stuff around, I knew that it was going to be a great fit. And then I took on this whole persona of like this prophet of Cage, because you're familiar with like the One True God Reddit, you know. And
I'm a very active member on One True God. Yes.
Yeah. So it sort of came together, right, in this beautiful moment where I knew that the internet could give back to me something true of itself, like this meme and this feeling. And then I just put a hashtag out, praise Cage, and it just kept flowing from there. All of my presentations were to worship and praise Cage, and it was about using the power of Cage to believe in yourself, that you could do anything. And it's backed up by his actual living work of being in like 100 movies already. Like nobody does that. Nobody works that hard in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's a great philosophy to have, and I personally think, like, from speaking to the people I've spoken to, and from like just from watching his films and like learning as much as I can about Nicolas Cage as a person, he is just he's a lot of like reasoned choices throughout his career and the films that he takes and stuff like that. But he kind of possesses this quality that like you look at what he does and like, man, the guy could churn out like 7 movies in 1 year, and it kind of goes, right, if he's doing that, like I need to, like I can just kind of create a work ethic based on that, like how you're saying with your like using him to kind of, it's an access point into what you're doing. Like this week alone, I've took on the mammoth task of just recording like 10 podcasts in the space of 5 days. And it's like, well, that is the true spirit of Nicolas Cage. Like he would go, right, let's just like dive in and like record as much as I can, as quick as I can, and kind of really be in the thick of like, and that's what I've tried to do throughout a lot of this, is like put myself in the mindset of Nicolas Cage. Like many of the like newer listeners might not know, but to begin with, I kind of had like, I'm not sure if it's an insensitive ethos or like hypothesis of what I wanted to achieve, but it was, if I watch all these Nicolas Cage films, will it like turn me crazy, like quote unquote? And
no, I don't. You know, I think you could. I think with Cage, he goes deliberately into some really dark spaces. You know, with Joe and with Mandy, and I haven't seen Color Out of Space yet, but like he goes to some dark places, and he's talked about it in some interviews where like that's where he wants to be, and like that's what he wants to explore as an actor. And I think for his work to bring that out, like there's a lot for us to then just look on and reflect without having to go to that dark place ourselves, right? He's gone and done that for us.
Yeah. And here's somebody that even films that you may think are similar in, like, we could see 10 Nicolas Cage films where he plays angry guy seeking revenge, but
Right.
we will get so many shades of that. We will either get a kind of Ghost Rider, the comic book
Right.
vengeance, or we'll get the kind of art house dark, like Mandy like type of vengeance. And it's like he's using the same toys, but and like the kind of the same paints, but the different shades of the same paint, and it's just always evolving. And kind of like, I think as an outsider looking into what you do, it's a fantastic like way, like it's a fantastic way to kind of make something accessible to kind of learn and like push yourself forward. And like I just
That's right.
that just so this like transition into what you do now, kind of what other things like have you created like in your time, like kind of like what is your day-to-day job basically?
Oh, yeah. So my day-to-day job is I work at a startup. It's called begin.com.
Yep.
And it is an application platform. And we provide a very technical thing called continuous integration and continuous delivery for applications. Now, what I do is in developer relations. So I talk to a lot of our customers, figure out how they're using the tool, figure out ways we can make it better for them,
Yeah.
create learning content to help them onboard into the product, into the service. And so I write a lot of blog posts. I'm going to start doing like Twitch streams and appearing on technical podcasts. I give conference talks. Pretty much just any way to create awareness and visibility for the service. And we hope, and I know more than hope, but I know that once people start using the service, they'll be able to build their own applications faster. And I encourage people to like try it out, make an idea on their own, kick the tires, right, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then when they're ready to bring it to their actual workplace, they will have experienced our product and our service in a fun and easy, light way. And then it's like, okay, time to kick it into production, and we're right there for them. And if that happens, then I'm super groovy, man. Like, you just keep on going.
In your day-to-day, do you sneak in like Cage into your work?
Oh yeah,
Is it
yeah.
kind of
So here's the thing, right? Like every programming tutorial you'll find out there, one of the first examples is called Hello World. It's where you take a program and you get it to do one thing, like one very simple thing, and it's just printing out like the word Hello World. I flip that and I'll make a lot of my examples into Praise Cage. So instead of instead of saying "Hello World," the response will be like "Praise Cage." I also created a blog, like an example blog that other developers can use. So it's not like I create a blog; I create the platform for other
Yep.
people to make blogs, right? And in that example, it's like Nick Cage facts as a different post. I've done Alexa skills as Nick Cage facts. I've done APIs. So again, someone else could ask my Nick Cage service for quotes, and it would return quotes. I have built one into my iPhone. So like I can ask my iPhone for a Nick Cage quote, and it would like read it to me in like the Siri voice. Gosh, what else have I done?
Are,
I've
are,
done some.
are
Yeah.
these things on the what you're saying about like the Alexa and the kind of iPhone?
Yeah. You can find one of my cage facts on Alexa. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to dig up the link. I don't know if it's still active. For a while, Amazon was giving away free Echoes for anyone who made a skill. And so I was like, dang, that's like $80. Like, I'm gonna do that. And like, so I had never done it before, right? It's another example where like I had never done that before. Like I'd never written an Alexa skill. And I was like, well, I'll just read some tutorials, get into, they're called documentation, right? You have to like basically read the handbook. So you read the handbook and you build the thing, and then they send you an Echo. Like,
It's
what a world.
Yeah.
I was like, what a world. So now I have an Echo. And because of Nicolas Cage, because other people will say like, oh yeah, I'm going to get to that. Like, oh, I could do that. I'm going to get to that later. But they never do, because they sit down at the computer, and often a lot of software developers, when they go to actually build something on their own, they get stuck. They're like, I don't know what to make. I could make this. I could make that. They over-engineer it. They just get paralyzed with the overwhelming sense of it all. And I just go, nope, gonna do something for Cage. Cage will be my guiding light. I will build this thing. And after you build like 4 or 5 things, like I know which movies I can pull from. I know which quotes are great. I know where the sources of images are going to be. I know, like I have like an inventory of like Cage material, and it never ends. Like it still keeps coming. Like I have more movies to see every single day.
Well, it sounds like Cage is just like a wellspring for you, and kind of like a bouncing off point. Is there any plans? Do you have anything in the works, like Cage related, for the future at all?
Oh boy, yeah. So on our platform at begin.com, people can make just like a personal website.
Yep.
And it's totally free, and they can check it out. It's geared towards a little bit more of an intermediate developer, so it's not quite like drag and drop.
Yep.
But we're meant to be for people who make software, right? And one of the things that I've always wanted to do was build like the one great Cage API, where people can send a request and they'll get all the facts, all the podcasts, like just like a giant repository of Cage material that people can then openly request against. Sort of like a wiki, but for like software developers, right? Like we have a way of integrating data from other people into our applications, and I want to be able to provide like a data set, like a Nick Cage data set, to other developers so that they can start building their own apps based on the data that I've already sourced. A very, very ambitious goal would be to build something like the Frinkomatic. I think it's called the Frinkomatic or the Frinkotron. It's a wonderful like labor of love. These people have cataloged every single episode of The Simpsons, run it through some kind of program to pull out animated GIFs based on the dialogue. So you can go and search for like a phrase, and it will come back with animated GIFs of that show at that time mark.
Wow.
There are not nearly enough good Nicolas Cage GIFs and clips on the internet. Like, not nearly enough. There's so much range to what he does outside of just the absurd hair memes that it would be great to figure out a way to do the system where I could like ingest some video, parse it, meaning like I just look through it with the computer program, read out the dialogue, and just start cataloging it. And then, you could build a Cage AI with it. You could find out how many times he screams. Like, you could do all kinds of stuff against the data that it generates.
Yeah, I'm like very rudimentarily. I'm just trying to teach myself like very basic, but like I just want to get better at Excel spreadsheets. And Nicolas Cage is someone who like I've been creating like spreadsheets. So like you're saying, I want to try and find out how many times does he have the same name in a movie? Like, what's the most common name? what director has he worked with the most amount of time, and
we could work together on that. Like, I'm serious. I know so I got started. My original job was a financial advisor. Funny enough, doing lots of spreadsheets. Lots of cash flow analysis and all that stuff. And I got really, really deep into spreadsheets, and I think that really planted the seed of me being a programmer. But yeah, I think spreadsheets are great. A lot of businesses use them in the software development world. It's always a joke. Like, the business people will just keep putting stuff in spreadsheets no matter what kind of program we build for them, right? Like, they're always going to complain it's too slow or they can't find anything. They're just going to keep making spreadsheets. So there are ways to use spreadsheets as a data source, and I can show you how to do that for real.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So like, oh, that's fantastic. So the wonderful places that Nick Cage will take you.
Yes.
Amazing, Paul. Well, moving like forward with things, like I just kind of want to like ask you, what is your favorite Nicolas Cage film?
Oh God, everybody asks. So in doing like a dozen of these types of Nicolas Cage talks over the last 3 years, everyone always comes up and first thing they're like, is this real? I'm like, yes, I really do love Nicolas Cage. And then they're like, okay. Then they try to test you, like, okay, well, what's your favorite movie? And then it's like, picking a favorite child. Like, you can't, like, there's different ones for different moods. But my favorite right now is still National Treasure. Like, right now, as of this instant, it just, like, I was able to see it again recently, and it's so good. Even number 2, like, most sequels are terrible compared to the first. And like number 2 somehow does the exact same beats as number 1, but it doesn't matter because it's just more, right? Like, it's one of the few sequels where they're just like, yeah, you love this. Let's just give you more. And like, we're not going to futz around about it. Like, done.
You'll be surprised how many times National Treasure actually comes up on this podcast whilst like talking to my guests and stuff like that. It seems to be one that people just like, I describe it a lot of the time as a perfect Sunday movie, in that like, if it's on TV on a Sunday, you're kind of lazing about the house and it comes on TV, you're not going to skip it. It's like, it's easy. It's comfort food. It is just like, it is. Yeah.
Well, the director, he does all kinds of stuff I like. The director of National Treasure, Turtletaub.
Yeah.
He has that TV show that was incredible. Turtletaub does this TV show. It's like about an apocalyptic event, and it's just so good. And it has the same sort of feel. Like, this universe doesn't actually exist. Like, no one could actually go and pull off these things, but if they could, this is what would happen. And I think that's what makes great films great. It's like, you can explore this fake reality, but it's just real enough to where like you get sucked in.
That's an amazing place to leave it, Paul. Where can people keep up to date with what you're doing? Obviously, you spoke about some interesting things that you want to create in the future. So if my listeners want to kind of see what you're doing, I will obviously put some like links in the show notes, as well as, of course, your fantastic presentation for people's minds to just be boggled and kind of I think once they see that, they will want to kind of understand a bit more, and will definitely listen to this episode. So yeah, where can people catch up with what you're doing?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter. It's probably, the most visible place everyone can find me. Paul Chin Jr. on Twitter. Hashtag praise Cage. Anything cool Nicolas Cage that comes your way and you think it would be a fun app or piece of software, like, let me know. Like, I'm down for kicking the tires on it. That, and check out begin.com if you or somebody is super into web development. Just give it a shout and let me know if you have any questions.
Perfect. Paul, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Same here. This is, oh my God, it's so great to talk to another Cage fan. Like,
I will admit, to begin with, like it kind of, I got into it for the kind of the meme factor of it, but over time, like I've been doing this. Well, I took a long hiatus in the for nearly 2 years, and I've kind of come back like full of steam. And over those 2 years, kind of, I don't know, you don't realize what good you had until it's gone. And I was like, actually, Cage is really good, and I left it at a very interesting point in the podcast. I stopped covering films around 2009, and then I feel like that is kind of, it's like halfway through his career. So like, well, in terms of like the 100 movies, I think that's about 50 movies in. So like now it's like, it's 10 years but it's 50 movies, so it's a very fascinating time in the Cage career, and so far so good. Only time will tell what will happen next.
Hey man, I appreciate you doing this and bringing us together, and I'm serious about getting that data. I think we could do something with it. So thank you.
There we have it, guys. There was my conversation with Paul Chin Jr., and I'm sure you would agree with me that he is a fascinating and interesting guy, and the fact that he uses Nicolas Cage in his work just brings a smile to my face. And there's many people out there who have a story like Paul, and if you know one of those people, please get in touch, and you can get hold of me on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at CagedInPod, or you can reach me by email, which is cagedinpod@gmail.com. I'm always up for a conversation about Cage films, anything Cage related, and how Nicolas Cage has affected your life, or somebody you know. If they have a crazy Nick Cage story, I'm always all ears to hear it. So as for next week, I'll be joined by Marco Kairis. A lot of you may not know this man's name. You may not even know his face, but he was a very important part of Nicolas Cage's career for 10 years. He was Nicolas Cage's stand-in, and we go deep into what it was like working for Nicolas Cage during the 90s. So for a lot of people, the golden era of Nicolas Cage. We're talking Con Air, Face Off. Oh boy. Yeah, it's a real good one. I had this conversation very recently and really want to get it out to you. So that's why that will be dropping next week. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you are, because that's one you definitely won't want to miss. So as ever, I've been Petros Patsilivas. I've been Caged In. You have been amazing. Bye-bye.